clothes to get all cleaned up and put away.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome back. Sorry, let me get this straightened out here. Happy Friday. Welcome back. Oh my goodness. I have a headache today, and partially due to the live that we're going to talk about. So there are some changes in the IHSS and Medi-Cal world that we're going to go over today. That is our topic. So let me put that up here. Boom. Welcome to those of you who are just tuning in from Facebook and from YouTube. My name is Caleb, and coming to you from Galt Advocacy, where we talk about all things IHSS related, Medi-Cal, disability, in the disability world here in California, specifically California. So welcome back. If you're not new here, thank you for always coming back. Like always, you already know the drill. Drop a comment. Let me know what's going on in your life. Let me know where you're from. If there's anything in particular you need some help with or want some advice on, we'd love to try and help you out today. And if you're brand new here, this is your first live you stumbled upon, welcome. We do Galt Advocacy. We'll do this every Friday, whether that be me or Nicole or Myra or Dakota. You've seen us all on here. But yeah, if you have questions, let me know. I'd love to try and help out. But we will talk. We do have an outline today. We have a topic, and it's about some changes that are happening within Medi-Cal that we'll be relaying over to IHSS, right? So if you don't know, IHSS is a benefit of Medi-Cal. So whatever impacts and affects Medi-Cal could impact and affect IHSS, especially when it comes to funding. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And we do have a good chunk of people. Today might be a relatively quick live. So if you can share this now or tag a friend, if they can jump on as quickly as they can, that'd be great. First time viewer, Miss Nancy, well, welcome. Glad you're here. We talk, again, kind of all things special needs related here in California. IHSS tends to be a topic we talk about often, as is Medi-Cal and things like that. I did just get a note that my connection here seems to be a little rough. So let me know if I'm going in and out or lagging on your guys' end, okay? All right, so hopefully everybody can see me and hear me okay. Let me know if you can in the comments, and let me know if you can't, okay? I will go ahead and jump into today's topic since we already have a really good chunk of people here. Pulling up my little sheet to refer to. And like I said, if you could tag a friend, tag a support group, share the stream if you can, that's really helpful. All right. And I haven't gotten any comments yet. Oh, Nancy, you said you're hearing things perfectly. Great. Hopefully you can see me okay as well. All right. So we'll go right into some of the changes here. Okay. And forgive me, I forgot to make a banner of it. Actually, I'm just going to do that right now. We're going to talk about the elimination of the backup provider with IHSS and what the heck that means. So first thing we're going to go over is it appears as though they're proposing to eliminate the backup provider system. And so what this is it allows, I'm just going to actually read this here. So right now, IHSS has a backup provider system. This is where families can rely on when their regular caregiver can't work. So for example, if the provider gets sick, has a family emergency, or quits, or simply just doesn't show up, that's when that's going to be utilized for, right? So what this budget is proposing is eliminating the backup provider system entirely. And so what that does leave us is with recipients of IHSS without a backup provider in the event their provider can't work that day or that week or cannot work with them anymore, period, right? So let me know if anybody has utilized this backup provider. Let me see here. Hi, Shannon, welcome. So let me know if you're familiar with the backup provider system, if that's something you've utilized for yourself or know somebody who has. Sorry, going back to my outline. Where did it go here? Here we go. So the proposed savings for this is about $3.5 million. So it appears as though they're really going to start cracking down in coming years, where they're going to start pushing agendas like this so that the state of California can save as much money as possible. And further down the line of this outline, we're going to go over, it's a little bit, it ends up being very clear as to what the goal is and why. So let me know if anybody is familiar with the backup provider system, if that's something you've utilized before. It's going to be, I think, to my understanding, a little different than having multiple providers. So some families, if let's just say it's a husband and wife and they're caring for a parent who has dementia and they're both providers and they kind of switch out the hours, that's not really the backup provider system. It's a little different. So in your scenario, you'd be okay. But there are primary providers and then the secondary, right? And so having the backup provider system in place for those who don't have multiple people that can help, it has been very helpful for some. And so that is something that they are proposing to eliminate. Next, as we discussed a moment ago, IHSS is a benefit of Medi-Cal, right? So if you don't have Medi-Cal, you cannot get IHSS. I'm going to push this banner up for you guys to see as well. Okay. So IHSS Medi-Cal is wanting to end immediately after Medi-Cal ends. So if you lose your Medi-Cal, maybe it's a clerical error or your income is increased, whatever it may be, right? You move and the address wasn't updated. If your Medi-Cal is terminated for some reason, what currently is in place is IHSS will remain active for a period of time, and so will Medi-Cal. If Medi-Cal is proposing to be eliminated, it'll remain active for a period of time, right? So this part of this proposal is asking for a change in that realm. Nancy, never knew that option was available. Yeah, it's not something I'm super familiar with myself. And so I work with primarily like the families that Galt Advocacy has worked with is parents with young children with special needs or young adults. So in those scenarios, you know, we don't really see too many backup providers or the backup system, but something to look into before it ends. Rosita, hello, good afternoon to you. Wanted to share that I had my reassessment. Happy that my new social worker was really nice and didn't touch the hours, feeling super blessed. Congratulations to you, Rosita. Thanks for sharing that. Kathina, welcome. Hello to you. All right. So IHSS is tied to Medi-Cal eligibility. But right now, if somebody loses Medi-Cal due to paperwork, a renewal, delay, or a temporary change in eligibility, there is a program called the IHSS Residual, also known as IHSR, that can allow IHSS services to continue temporarily. What this budget proposes, that is if Medi-Cal ends, so will the IHSS immediately with no transition period. So this is going to save the state of California, proposed roughly about $86 million by doing this. So each elimination is a cost save, right? Every time they take this away, money goes up, savings goes up, right? Now, as somebody who appreciates the tax dollar here, I appreciate it being utilized correctly, right? I see value in our state wanting to save money, right? But not at the expense of the disabled community. That's working backwards. And so I hope you feel the same way. And if you don't, that's okay. I hope you can still stick around. But some of this is pretty shocking, right? Because IHSS is a caregiving benefit program, right? This is some people's, if they're the caregiver, this could be their livelihood, right? If it's for the recipient, this is what they rely on to get the care that they need, right? So any of these changes, although may seem minuscule in the grand picture, it can be a huge impact to that person individually, right? And so this change is very difficult to swallow, I feel like, because Medi-Cal a lot of times gets terminated for no reason. There's clerical errors, mix-ups. They put you in the wrong Medi-Cal program often, right? So to just cut off IHSS immediately after it may not even be your fault the Medi-Cal was denied or eliminated, it's a little frustrating. It's a little frustrating to hear. So let me know your thoughts if you have any. Di has a question. My daughter is homeschooling. She has an IEP, but the problem is we didn't discuss the meeting about her behavior because we thought that the IEP is for academic only. Should that be affecting our application for IHSS protective supervision? So, Di, great question. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for letting us know what's happened so far. So it is important to recognize and know that, and it appears that you're aware now, but no, the IEP is not academic only. So specialized education is much bigger than just whether or not somebody can understand math or learn how to read and write. So if you have autism or some type of intellectual disability and you require an IEP, you require specialized education, the school district is responsible to help this person achieve not just academic success, but emotional and social capacity for independent living, the potential for economic self-sufficiency, right? This is how can we support this person from this young age all the way up until they go into adulthood, right? We want to set them up for success in all these areas. That is something that should be covered in every IEP meeting, right? So much bigger, much more broader than just academic. And so yes, if you have a child who has maladaptive behaviors at home and maybe even at school, I would absolutely want these things highlighted in the IEP. And so whether that be eloping, self-harming, oral fixations, they put anything and everything in their mouth, whatever it may be, if you feel that it's important for somebody to be aware of, I would want it included in the IEP. And so oftentimes, you may have your child, little Johnny, who is an eloper. They self-harm, they do XYZ behavior at home, but when you bring it up to the school, they don't ever mention that that's a behavior that they see, right? That's very common, and it may even be true. The school is a totally different environment, right? Either way, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be including these behaviors. It shouldn't mean that they shouldn't include this discussion. If it's a part of the child's life, whether it be at school or at home, it needs to be discussed. And so what tends to happen with IHSS, which is why Di is alluding to this, is when you meet with your social worker and you mention these behaviors, but there's no mention of these things in the IEP, automatically IHSS and the social worker, they'll look at that and say, well, why is it such a big deal at home but not a big deal at school? And they'll question the authenticity of what you're trying to testify to, right? So even if the school doesn't see these behaviors, it's still important for you to tell them, hey, I want this at least mentioned somewhere in the parent concern section of the IEP, that I brought it to your attention. If it's not happening at school, amazing, praise God. But if in the event that it does happen, I want the school to be aware of how to handle that, right? So, great question, glad you're here. Vanessa, hello, my daughter is 7 with severe speech delay and 22q deletion syndrome. Her IEP says she needs help with articulation and receptive language. She can also be self-destructive, mainly at home, which she most likely be approved for protective supervision. So it's hard to say. So it's almost impossible to qualify somebody over this information here just in a comment. So I appreciate you sharing. And you are more than welcome to connect with the office and chat with someone to kind of get a determination. So protective supervision is all about being self-directed or non-self-directed. So non-self-direction means that you do not have the ability to assess danger because you're mentally impaired. Therefore, you engage in potentially dangerous activities. And so at age 7, if there is an intellectual disability or cognitive delay of some way where it causes this individual to do things that are dangerous without understanding, now we're describing somebody who may need protective supervision. So it sounds like, Vanessa, that it's definitely worth looking into for sure. And so if you want to call the office and get on the calendar, you most certainly can. We'd love to take a look at that for you. Nancy, it's called IHSSR, immediate removal of IHSS, even if it's just clerical error. This can be horrible if the recipient, they are not able to comprehend the situation. I agree. Yeah, and it already kind of happens that way. Now they're just really trying to push it through. So yes, the IHSSR is a different type of Medi-Cal program that you can be pushed into in situations like this. And so yes, they're wanting to terminate IHSS immediately after Medi-Cal gets terminated as well. No grace period, no wiggle room. It can get fixed, of course. So like if it's a clerical error and it shouldn't have been denied, they can fix it. But it's just frustrating because then you'll have both things to fix. You'll have to fix the Medi-Cal, and then you also have to worry about getting your IHSS fixed as well, right? So yes, very frustrating. Shannon, if this is an immediate cancellation, can recipient providers reapply to get Medi-Cal IHSS back? Yeah, of course. So again, that it can get fixed, it can get resolved if it was terminated wrongfully, right? And so if it does get terminated, you do have to figure out whether or not it's a wrongful or correct termination, right? So yes, you can always reapply for things if it gets removed. If it gets wrongfully removed or wrongfully terminated, then you'd probably want to file an appeal or some type of dispute with the county. That way it can get resolved rather than needing to reapply and start over. So Sarah, so how are we to know if there's ever a clerical error? That's crazy. So yeah, so I would highly recommend that if you ever get terminated with Medi-Cal or you're confused on your eligibility for Medi-Cal, reach out to a medical expert. You can also just call Medi-Cal directly if you want. But if you ever want to contact Medi-Cal Consulting Services, we talk about them almost every week here. They're a phenomenal advocacy group that focuses strictly on Medi-Cal. So you can chat with Lisa Ramsey or some of her colleagues, and they can help you out with anything Medi-Cal related. All right, let's see. Sharon, this happened to my recipient a couple of years ago, so they cut off IHSS. It took 2 months for them to get it right. The gentleman lives with me and is mentally disabled and has been like that since birth. I'm not understanding why we have to continue with this every year. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really sorry that that happened. 2 months is a long time, right? And unfortunately, I have seen it take longer. And so not that that takes anything away. That's still a long time and it's frustrating. And so hopefully we can get this resolved. Not we, but the county, right? The state of California can fix these timelines. Thank you so much. I appreciate your questions. Thanks for being here, Di. Marissa, the new asset limit is forcing people to fill out renewal applications for Medi-Cal. My mom has to renew by May 1st. She has IHSS protected supervision. When do the new rules take place or potentially take place? So to my understanding, some of these rules would take effect at different times, but I think they're proposing it to be at the end of the year. It's a little unclear at the moment, but we can definitely find that out. All right, so we're gonna go into the third issue here, which is gonna be cost changes. Another fun one. So IHSS shifting the cost to the county. Now, this one may be a little hard to follow, so I'll do my best. But basically, the state of California and the federal government and the counties, they all kind of share different costs when it comes to Medi-Cal and IHSS and all these different programs. So what this changes is proposing that the county is going to have to foot the bill on certain things. That's not going to fly with a lot of counties. If they're going to be responsible for paying for an increase in somebody's hours, we're going to get a lot more denials than we've seen before. Okay, so this third change is about who pays for IHSS growth. The proposal would make counties pay 100% of the cost increases when per case hours go up. What the budget is proposing is counties pay 100% of the new cost growth tied to per case hour increases. So why this matters: if the counties are financially responsible for every increase, they may become more restrictive about approving additional hours, even when those hours are medically and safety necessary. This can quietly reduce services over time. So the proposal here, this one kind of makes me laugh because of how it's comical. The proposed state savings would be $233.6 million. But what are they saving exactly? Oh yeah, they're just not approving more hours. That's what it is, really. Now the cost is on them, and so the county has more control. So the county goes, oh, well, whoops, we forgot to attend your assessment, or oop, it's just taking us a lot longer, or nope, we went out there and definitely don't need more services, definitely don't need more hours. And then you got to file an appeal, and then you got to convince a judge and all that jazz. So this one's definitely not my favorite point on this list, because that is very frustrating. Shifting costs to the county in any way, in any capacity, is not a great idea, because the counties, again, it's a little bit more tangible, right? We can't touch or see the state of California, but you meet with your social worker, right? That's a county representative. They work for the county. So that's a lot more tangible. You live in your county, right? And so them having a bit more control about the growth of your hours and whether or not they want to pay for it, it's just, this is very confusing stuff, you guys. It's really odd to see why this is being proposed. When the provider gets protect supervision for their child, do they have to report to the social worker if they are working? Oh, like if the provider has as a job outside of IHSS? Yeah, so you do have to notify, you have to inform IHSS if they ask, but having a job outside of IHSS doesn't impact your eligibility for being a provider. Not anymore. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. Shirley, could you give us the contact number for Medi-Cal Consulting Company? Yes, so I can come back and we can drop it in the comment section for you, but it is Medi-Cal Consulting Services. And I'll just link the website here for you guys. That I do know. It's medihelper.com. Boom. All right. So for those of you on Facebook, you'll see this in the comment section, medihelper.com. For those of you on YouTube, you will see medihelper.com. So check out that. That will link you to Medi-Cal Consulting Services, which is Lisa Ramsey's agency. She's been doing this for a very, very long time, and she can answer any question in regards to Medi-Cal that you might have. This is the last. My son is 9, doesn't know how to, my son is 9, doesn't know how to read his speech. He also elopes his IEP with learning disability. He has autism, ADHD, and I believe dyslexia, and pica. He also breaks things and hasn't been able to qualify for PS. I would highly recommend calling the office here. Galt Advocacy's phone number is listed on the Facebook page as well as the website. Call and ask to book a consult or an intake where your son's behaviors can be discussed and compared to the criteria, and you'll be able to figure out really quickly if protective supervision is something that he qualifies for. And if he does, then maybe representation at this point might be a good idea. So Galt Advocacy can provide that for you if that's necessary. Thank you for sharing. Nancy, so hours in place now are okay. Basically, hours now are grandfathered in. Any new hours would be the responsibility of the county. So it would be additional hours, correct? That's what I'm gathering so far. That's how I'm understanding it. Does the provider need to call the worker when they are working? So going back to that question, again, you're just providing the information on whether or not you have a job. They don't need to know how many hours you work necessarily. If they ask, you can tell them. But if you just recently got a job, if it's not impacting your schedule with IHSS where you care for your child, then there's not much you need to do. But just to play it safe, if you want to reach out to your social worker and just let them know that you have a job, you want to let them know that your schedule, that's perfectly fine. It doesn't affect the individual's IHSS hours. All right, last point here. Medi-Cal changes related to HR 1. So there are also Medi-Cal changes connected to federal changes under HR 1. Starting October 1st, there we go, guys, there's a date on this, of 2026, certain immigrant groups will lose federal Medicaid funding. So the groups that would be impacted would be refugees, asylees, survivors of trafficking, and survivors of domestic violence. So instead of fully replacing the lost federal funding with state dollars, the proposal would end the full Medi-Cal coverage and limit coverage to emergency and pregnancy services only. Why this matters: people who are legally present and already identified as vulnerable would lose access to routine care, medications, and ongoing treatment. So this will be forced to wait until a health crisis becomes an emergency. So if that is something that you feel will directly impact your life, people that you love, whether you agree or disagree with this, it's important to advocate and understand what the transition is with this, with what the transitions are with these Medi-Cal changes. Okay, and so we're gonna encourage people to do a little bit of research on this, and then if you feel that you want to learn where to advocate for these things, I'm gonna actually pin these here. I wonder if it'll let me do it this way. Sorry, y'all. Hold, please. Oh, I think it did it. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just copying and pasting here. Okay. So, I made it a little messy. Sorry, guys. Either way. So check these 2 points out. This is where you can find more information on this and advocate either for or against these things, right? And so I highly encourage those who are in the community with us, if you have Medi-Cal or people in your home with Medi-Cal or people you love that need Medi-Cal right now, and of course need potentially IHSS, all of this is going to be impacting those individuals, right? And so it's important to be aware and understand what's happening. It's okay to not quite understand. Some of these things are very confusing, and so don't take everything. I'd say take some of this information with a grain of salt, right? Things change and evolve. Bills pass and get overruled and rejected, right? So we really don't know exactly what's going to happen. A lot of this information, it seems to be preliminarily open for us to review right now. So it's terrible. Like Miss Nancy here said, I agree. I think a lot of this is going to be very negative, more negative to the disabled community than it is to the budget of California, right? And I mean, of course, naturally, it's gonna help the budget of California a lot more. But I feel like the ROI here doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so that's why, again, we kind of talk a lot about the difference of the people who are in control of these dollars versus the people who actually need them. The people who are in control of these dollars will never understand or fathom what we go through in the disabled, special needs world, right? And so it's frustrating. I wish things were different, but let me see if there's anything else here. Okay. I'm sorry, I think there was a couple of comments I missed here. Anna, has anything changed recently, or does it seem they are removing PS more aggressively? So protective supervision has been on the hot seat for the last year and a half or so. That in itself is not new, but they've really pushed hard in the last year to year and a half. They have been removing and denying protective supervision a lot more aggressively than they ever have, definitely. And so there's been waves, over the last 20 years that we've seen where, they'll have just like moments where they really want to deny and save the state of California a lot of money. And then other times where it's not as bad. And so right now we are in a very, very low dip. The state is training the social workers and the appeals reps statewide on how to deny effectively. And they're becoming very, very good at building a case against somebody that they feel does not qualify. Now, we oftentimes will see these and completely disagree with them. But yes, to answer your question, Anna, they are removing and denying protective supervision a lot more aggressively than they have. Elizabeth, sorry, I have a question. Does your office help with conservatorships? So Galt Advocacy is a non-attorney advocate group. So Galt Advocacy is not actually like conduct the representation for a conservatorship. That is something that you would have to consult with a paralegal on or a lawyer. You can of course do it yourself. It's very difficult. I wouldn't recommend that. But if you need some attorneys or individuals who can help you navigate the conservatorship space, we definitely can refer you to the right people. And again, going back to Medi-Cal, if you need help with Medi-Cal, medihelper.com right here, okay? You would connect with Lisa Ramsey, most likely, or one of her colleagues, of course, but she can help with all things related to Medi-Cal. She is phenomenal. She's a friend of Galt Advocacy, and she's been doing this a very, very long time. So you could also reach out to her about some of these changes and say, hey, Caleb said a bunch of crazy stuff on Facebook Live the other day. Help make sense of it, please. And she'll be a really good asset for you to break that information down clearly. Welcome, Elizabeth. Chantel, can you have self-determination and IHSS? So self-determination, also known as SDP, is a status within regional center. So it has nothing to do with IHSS. So can you be a part of the self-determination program with regional center while also having IHSS? Short answer is yes. Yes, you can. Nancy, does Galt Advocacy promote the union? So Galt Advocacy does not promote the union. However, Galt Advocacy is not against the union, nor are they for the union. The union is a very specific aspect of IHSS and Medi-Cal. And if you feel that you would like to be like a member of the union and pay union dues, you most certainly can. So Galt Advocacy as a private organization, we're not necessarily going to have like an opinion on this. The union is the union. It's important. It's necessary, right? So the union helps with advocating for certain changes. So that's really important. Now, if you're asking about like memberships with the union where you're paying them monthly dues to get services from them, that's something I can't really speak on because it's not something I've been a part of. I've heard some people love it and some people are not a fan of it. So some of the things that they can offer is representation services, free information, right? So there's a lot of cool, not free information, you're technically paying for it. But yeah, so Galt Advocacy does not necessarily promote the union, but we recognize that it's an important part of this. Yes. And anything we can do to protect supervision being removed or specific language you can use. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the language. I would say it's about your evidence. So whatever you're sharing with your social worker, you got to make sure it's backed up by evidence, okay? If your son or your child has an eloping behavior, make sure it is mentioned in the IEP. Make sure it's mentioned in the IPP with regional center, right? Make sure you have examples to share, right? If you mention, say, oh, my little Johnny is such a big eloper, and then the social worker says, okay, well, when was the last time that happened? You think, well, actually hasn't happened this year. It's been a long time. In your mind, you're thinking, well, we're always there to stop little Johnny from eloping. That's why it hasn't happened in a long time, right? That's what you would have to say, right? So you want to be proactive in that scenario rather than reactive, right? So, sorry, going back to kind of the point, the biggest thing is not necessarily the language, it's the evidence. If your evidence matches the behavioral challenges, the maladaptive behaviors, if the evidence matches the history of what you've testified to, that's going to be the most important part. And then, of course, you can always call Galt Advocacy or another advocate group if you feel like you need ongoing representation. Thank you for being here, Chantel. I am holding on to a second car for my daughter who has a 504 in Medi-Cal currently in college. Would the car kick either of us off Medi-Cal? That's a good question. So there's been so many changes with like assets and income eligibilities. So we'll have to connect with Lisa on this one. So I don't know. I think it depends on the car, weirdly enough, but I'm not sure. Zuri, I had a long hearing for them taking away protect supervision for my 10-year-old after 4 years. In the hearing, the county said there were no changes other than saying she's self-directing based on her being able to answer some of the questions, which were incorrect. We see that a lot. But they said she still answered even if they weren't up to my standards. That's crazy. She's still waiting on a judge's decision. Do you think I have a good chance? They couldn't prove any changes whatsoever. Well, first off, I'm sorry you've had to go through that. That is rough. Nobody likes to go through an appeal. Sorry, going back to your comment here. So yeah, do you have a good chance? I mean, it sounds like it, right? If you have protective supervision and if the county is proposing on removing it, then the county has the burden of proof. They have to show evidence as to why this person no longer qualifies for protective supervision, right? So like you mentioned, they don't have any evidence, right? They're claiming that she answered certain questions, but do those questions reflect this person's ability to assess danger, right? That's a tough one. I really hope that the whatever decision is, that it's correct and in favor of this child's well-being. But you are more than welcome to give Galt Advocacy a call if you disagree with that decision. Okay. Maria, if didn't document, it didn't happen. Always document everything. I agree. Anna, just starting homeschooling, so we won't have an IEP to turn in. I'm a little nervous about that because we do have protective supervision. Even better. Now, granted, if you're homeschooling through the school district, you still will have an IEP. I mean, you don't have to, but I would recommend it. I would. But even if there's no IEP, that's okay. It just means one less thing for IHSS to misinterpret, in my opinion. Your other documents better look great. Thanks for being here, Mike. All right, so we are just about out of time. I got to end a little shorter today, but thank you everybody for being here. Hopefully this topic was something that you connected with. We had a really good chunk of people here today, so I'm sorry we can't go a little longer, but great questions like always. If you want to connect with Galt Advocacy, you most certainly can. There's another question here actually I can talk about. Lucy, do you necessarily need ABA to get IHSS? No, you do not. It's helpful sometimes, but it's not like a necessary thing. No. All right. So yeah, if you have more questions in regards to these Medi-Cal changes, you can call Galt Advocacy or you can call Lisa Ramsey at medihelper.com, right? And if you need representation or help with whatever you're going through, IHSS, educational, Medi-Cal, regional center, all these different things. You can always reach out to Galt Advocacy. You can reach out to Lisa at Medi-Cal Consulting Services. So we'll be here. We'll be here to help you guys. But anyways, I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday. Thanks again for being here. I hope you enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.